The sound of the rain tapping against the cafe windows was steady and soothing, like the very rhythm of the grey afternoon's heart. Inside, the warmth of freshly brewed coffee and the murmur of gentle conversations filled the air. Yet at a small table tucked in the corner sat a woman who seemed completely lost within her own storm. Her clothes were tidy but worn, her eyes hollow from countless sleepless nights, and across from her sat a little girl clutching a faded stuffed bunny, her only comfort in a world that had turned cold too early. Her name was Grace Miller, and the little girl was her 5-year-old daughter, Sophie. They had come into the cafe not because they could afford it, but because Grace wanted her daughter to feel normal again, even if just for one single day. For weeks, their meals had been nothing more than crackers, milk, and hope. Grace had lost her job 2 months earlier after the company where she worked as a receptionist suddenly shut down. The rent was late, the electricity overdue, and her car barely ran anymore. But it was Sophie's birthday, and Grace couldn't let her spend it hungry. She had walked miles through the rain to reach this place, carrying only a few crumpled dollars and a trembling prayer that somehow it would be enough. If you believe that even the smallest act of kindness can change someone's world, take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe, because stories like this remind us that compassion still exists in this world. The waiter approached their table, a polite young man named Lucas, holding his notepad with the calm patience of someone who had seen countless faces come and go, but rarely one so fragile. Grace ordered just a cup of coffee for herself, pretending she wasn't hungry, and a small plate of pancakes for Sophie. The little girl's eyes gleamed with delight as she hugged her bunny tightly. Whispering softly, "Mummy, it's my favorite," Grace smiled, though her heart was breaking inside, praying Sophie wouldn't ask for more. When the order was placed, as they waited for their food, Grace stared out the window, watching people rush by. Businessmen with umbrellas, couples laughing, delivery drivers racing through the rain. Everyone seemed to be moving forward with their lives. While she felt trapped in an endless loop of struggle, she remembered the day her husband, Aaron, had left, a goodbye that needed no words, a promise shattered beneath life's heavy burdens. He hadn't called since. The world had moved on without her, but she hadn't stopped holding everything together for her daughter's sake. When the pancakes finally arrived, Sophie's joy lit up their corner of the cafe. She giggled, clapping her small hands, and Grace's eyes filled with tears she quickly wiped away. Lucas noticed and hesitated for a moment before walking back to the counter. He had faced hard times himself once, and knew exactly what it looked like when someone tried to pretend everything was fine. Moments later, the bell above the cafe door jingled, and a tall man in a grey suit stepped inside, shaking off the rain from his jacket. His name was Nathan Reed, a regular customer, confident, successful, and always kind. But today, as he entered, his eyes caught something across the room. The sight of the woman and child sitting quietly by the window made him pause. There was something deeply familiar, not their faces, but their situation. He knew that kind of quiet desperation. Years ago, Nathan had been on the other side of the story, broke, hungry, and too proud to ask for help. He remembered the stranger who once paid for his meal in a small diner, just like this one. That single act of kindness had changed everything, giving him the strength to keep going until he built the life he had now. He took his usual seat near the counter and ordered a black coffee, but his mind wasn't on his emails or meetings. It was on the mother and child. He watched as Grace smiled faintly while her daughter finished the pancakes, and how her expression shifted when she glanced at the bill. Panic flickered behind her calm face. She opened her wallet, counted, and froze. Lucas approached gently, his voice low. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said. "It's a little short." Grace's voice quivered as she whispered, I thought I had enough." "I'm so sorry." She fumbled through her purse, her hands trembling as she searched for a few missing coins. Sophie looked up, confused, sensing her mother's distress. At that exact moment, Nathan stood. Lucas turned toward him, sensing what was about to happen. "Sir," he said quietly, "they can't pay." Nathan looked at him, then at the mother and child, and smiled softly. That's why I'm here. The cafe fell silent. He walked toward Grace's table and handed Lucas his credit card. Please, he said, add their meal to my bill. And bring dessert too, whatever the little girl wants. Grace looked up in disbelief, her eyes wide. You don't have to, she began. But Nathan stopped her with a kind smile. I know, he said gently. But sometimes it's not about what we have to do, it's about what we should do. Tears welled up in her eyes and rolled down her cheeks. Sophie, unaware of her mother's emotions, smiled brightly and said, Thank you, mister. Clutching her bunny close, Nathan chuckled and knelt to Sophie's level. You're very welcome, princess, he said warmly. Make sure your mommy keeps smiling, okay? For a few moments, time seemed to stand still. The sound of rain faded to a whisper, replaced by something far more powerful. Human kindness. I don't know how to thank you, Grace whispered. Nathan looked at her with a soft smile. You already did, he replied. You're doing your best, and that's more than enough. Those words stayed in her heart for years to come. The next morning, Grace woke up with a strange lightness in her chest. Maybe it was the coffee she hadn't finished, or maybe it was the warmth from that stranger's smile. For the first time in months, she felt hope. She began applying for jobs again, sending out resumes she'd almost given up on. A week later, she received a call for an interview at a small local office. Nervous but determined, she dressed in her one decent outfit, carrying Sophie's lucky bunny charm in her bag. To her shock, the man behind the desk was Nathan Reed. He smiled in surprise when he recognized her, though he said nothing about the cafe. You're Grace Miller? He asked, glancing at her resume. Looks like you've got great experience. Grace could barely breathe. Fate had led her to the man who had once paid for her meal, now offering her a new beginning. Nathan hired her on the spot. I believe in giving people a chance, he said with that same calm kindness. Someone once gave me one when I needed it most. From that day on, Grace's life began to change. Slowly but surely, she rebuilt everything she had lost, her strength, her confidence, and her ability to dream again. She worked hard, earned promotions, and eventually moved into a cozy apartment with Sophie. Every year, on Sophie's birthday, they returned to that same cafe. And each time they saw someone sitting alone, looking defeated, Grace quietly paid for their meal before leaving. It became her silent promise to keep kindness alive. Years later, when Sophie grew up, she would often tell her friends the story of the man in the grey suit who changed their lives without expecting anything in return. It became more than just a memory. It became their family's legacy. As for Nathan Reed, he continued helping others quietly, never seeking attention or recognition. He believed true kindness wasn't about being seen. It was about seeing others. One rainy evening, long after Grace had built a better life, Nathan sat again in that same cafe, older now, with grayer hair but the same gentle smile. Across the room, he saw a young couple arguing quietly, their bill untouched, their worry clear. Without a word, he motioned to the waiter and handed him his card. "Sir," the waiter said softly, just like before, "they can't pay." Nathan smiled. "That's why I'm here. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel for more stories about kindness, faith, and second chances. Before you go, tell us in the comments, what's the kindest thing a stranger ever did for you? Because sometimes, even the smallest act can spark someone's miracle.